Have you ever noticed that the loudest person in the room is rarely the one people remember? We live in a world addicted to noise. We fill silence like it's a wound that needs covering. We talk to be liked. We explain ourselves to be understood. We perform, we posture, we prove. And somehow, despite all that effort, we still feel invisible. Here is the harsh truth the ancient Stoics understood, and modern psychology is only now catching up to. Words are cheap. Presence is not. The people who move through this world with true magnetism, the ones others lean toward without knowing why, they are rarely the ones talking the most. They are the ones who have mastered something far rarer. Silence. Not the silence of fear. Not the silence of having nothing to say. The silence of a man who no longer needs anyone's approval to know exactly who he is. Today, we go back 2,000 years to a Roman senator who barely spoke. And yet, when he did rise, the entire chamber fell silent to listen. We'll uncover why his restraint made him more powerful than the most eloquent orators of his age. And we'll show you exactly how to reclaim that same quiet power in a world that never stops talking. Rome, 1st century BC. The Republic is dying, though few will admit it yet. Ambitious men fill the Senate. Men like Cicero, brilliant and eloquent, capable of holding a crowd captive for hours with the sheer music of his voice. Men like the young, hungry Julius Caesar, already sensing where power was headed. And then there was Cato. According to the historian Plutarch, who wrote his biography a century later drawing on earlier Roman sources, Cato the Younger was a strange child even before he became a stranger kind of man. Plutarch describes him as slow to speak, serious beyond his years, unmoved by flattery, and nearly impossible to provoke into an outburst. A boy whose stillness unsettled the adults around him more than any tantrum could have. Plutarch recounts one telling episode. As a child, Cato was taken by his tutor into the household of Sulla, the dictator whose proscriptions had filled Rome with the heads of his enemies, displayed for all to see. While other children played nearby, Cato reportedly stood apart, watching the horror in total silence. When his tutor finally asked why he said nothing, Cato is said to have asked, simply, why no one had yet killed the man responsible. He did not shout it. He did not perform outrage for an audience. It was reportedly delivered flatly, almost coldly. A child's blunt honesty, untouched by the fear that kept grown men quiet. That early stillness never left him. As a grown man, in a Senate famous for its theatrical, drawn-out speeches, Cato became known for the opposite. Plutarch tells us he was a man of few words. But when he finally rose to speak, the entire chamber would fall quiet. Not because his voice was louder, but because everyone already sensed that whatever he said, he actually meant. Contrast this with the orators of his day. Cicero could dazzle a crowd, weave arguments so elegant they felt like poetry. But even Cicero, by his own admission in his letters, respected Cato precisely because Cato didn't need the crowd's approval to hold his position. He wasn't performing conviction. He simply had it, quietly, and let his actions confirm it. Cato never flattered his colleagues to gain favor. He didn't attend the endless dinners where alliances were built over wine and gossip. He lived by a discipline that bordered on the uncomfortable. Walking barefoot through Rome, wearing plain wool while others wore silk. Famously indifferent to how strange this made him look to his peers. And yet, historically, this is the part that fascinates us most. This same man, who refused every conventional method of winning influence, became one of the most respected and feared figures in the entire Republic. Men who despised his politics still trusted his word completely, because his silence had no hidden agenda behind it. There was nothing to manage, nothing to perform. What you saw was, simply, what was there. He didn't attract people by chasing their attention. He attracted them by refusing to need it. Here is what Cato understood, without ever needing a psychology textbook to prove it. Human beings are exquisitely sensitive to authenticity, and just as sensitive to its absence. When someone talks too much, explains too much, tries too hard to be liked. Something in us registers it, even if we can't name it. We sense the neediness underneath the words. And on some primal level, neediness repels. Silence, by contrast, signals something our nervous systems are wired to respect. Self-containment. A person who doesn't need to fill every gap in conversation is a person who isn't afraid of being fully seen, because they've already made peace with who they are. Modern psychologists call this internal locus of validation. The sense that your worth comes from within, not from constant external confirmation. The Stoics called it living according to nature. Or more precisely, refusing to place your peace of mind in things outside your control. Other people's opinions of you were, to them, the ultimate example of something outside your control. Cato didn't withhold speech to seem mysterious. He withheld it because he had already resolved, internally, what mattered and what didn't. The Senate's approval was outside his control. His own integrity was not. So he spent his energy protecting the one thing he could actually govern. This is the real secret behind magnetic silence. It was never a performance technique. It was the natural byproduct of a mind no longer at war with itself. No longer scrambling to be validated, defended, or understood by everyone in the room. And here's the modern payoff. The part that connects directly to real-world success. People trust what they cannot fully read. Not because it's manipulative, but because unreadability, when paired with consistency, signals depth. It signals that there's more beneath the surface than what's being handed out for free. In negotiations, in leadership, in relationships. The person who speaks least, but means every word, holds more real power than the room's loudest voice ever will. So how do you build this kind of presence? Not by pretending to be silent, but by earning the calm that makes silence natural. Here are 4 Stoic exercises to begin, starting today. Step 1, the evening reckoning. Each night, before sleep, ask yourself 3 questions. As Seneca describes practicing in his work on anger, a habit he says he inherited from the philosopher Sextius. What did I do well today? What did I do poorly? Where did I fail to act with restraint? This isn't self-punishment. It's data collection. The more clearly you know your own conduct, the less you need anyone else's opinion to tell you who you are. 5 minutes, every night. No exceptions. Step 2, the one-sentence rule. For 1 full week, before you speak in any group setting, pause and ask internally. Does this need to be said, by me, right now? Not everything true needs to be spoken. Not everything spoken needs to be immediate. Practice letting 1 comment per conversation go unsaid. Not from fear, but from choice. You will feel the discomfort of this. That discomfort is the muscle building. Step 3, negative visualization of approval. This is a classic Stoic technique. Epictetus, in the Discourses, repeatedly urges his students to imagine losing the things they cling to, so they stop being ruled by the fear of losing them. Apply it here. Spend 2 minutes imagining that a specific person's approval of you disappears completely. Sit with that discomfort. Now ask, what would you do differently if their opinion genuinely didn't determine your next move? Do that thing. Step 4, the stillness practice. Once daily, sit in complete silence for 10 minutes. No phone, no music, no distraction. Marcus Aurelius, writing privately to himself in what we now call meditations, repeatedly returns to the discipline of retreating into his own mind as a kind of shelter. A place no external chaos could invade. You are training the same capacity. The less afraid you are of silence when you're alone, the less you'll feel the need to fill it when you're with others. Do these 4 things consistently, and something will shift. Not overnight, but gradually, you'll notice you no longer rehearse conversations in your head. No longer feel the panic of a silence that needs filling. And ironically, people will start leaning in closer. Not because you're performing mystery, but because you've finally stopped performing at all. Cato the Younger was eventually defeated politically. His republic did fall. But 2,000 years later, we're still speaking his name. Not for what he said, but for what his silence proved he never needed to say. The next time you feel the urge to fill a silence, to explain yourself, to chase someone's approval with more words, remember the man who understood that real power doesn't announce itself. It simply stands there, unmoved, and lets the room come to it. If this changed the way you think about presence, subscribe. There's more ancient wisdom waiting, built not to entertain you, but to change how you move through the world.